I was just a communications officer aboard the research vessel Meridian when everything changed. My name is Sarah Chen, and I had the unfortunate privilege of being humanity's first witness to our own perceived weakness, and later, our terrifying strength that no one in the galaxy could have anticipated. The day started like any other on our deep space mission near the Kepler 442 system. We were cataloging exoplanets, running standard atmospheric scans, when our sensors picked up something that made my blood freeze. Ships, dozens of them, emerging from what appeared to be nowhere. Their hulls were sleek, organic-looking, like they'd been grown rather than built. The energy signatures were unlike anything in our databases. Captain Morrison, a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, stood at the tactical display with the kind of calm that comes from decades of command. "Open a channel, Chen. Let's see what they want." His voice was steady, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. We were a research vessel, lightly armed, with a crew of 43 scientists and support staff. If these visitors had hostile intentions, we wouldn't last 5 minutes. The response came faster than expected. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that defied easy description. Tall, angular, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift between purple and silver. Its eyes were large, multifaceted, and when it spoke, the voice was a harmonious blend of tones that somehow formed perfect English. "I am Zephyrian, speaker for the Zephyrian Collective. You are the species called humans, are you not?" The question carried an undertone of something I couldn't quite identify. Disappointment, perhaps. Morrison stepped forward. "I am Captain James Morrison of the Earth research vessel Meridian. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." Zephyrian's head tilted in what might have been amusement. "Peace. Yes, we have observed your species for some time now. Your wars, your conflicts, your limitations. Tell me, Captain Morrison, how long did it take your species to achieve faster-than-light travel?" The question seemed odd, but Morrison answered honestly. "Approximately 300 years from our first powered flight." A sound emanated from the alien that I later learned was their equivalent of laughter. 300 years. The Zephyrians achieved FTL in 47 of your years. The Thoraxians in 31. Even the primitive Kelvin managed it in 68. Zephyrian leaned forward, those multifaceted eyes seeming to look right through us. "Your species is remarkably slow to adapt, Captain. Remarkably weak." I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't first contact as we'd imagined it. This was an evaluation, and we were failing. However, Zephyrian continued, "The collective has use for weak species. You will serve as laborers, technicians, perhaps even entertainment. Your planet will be absorbed into our sphere of influence. Resistance would be futile and, frankly, embarrassing for all involved." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving us staring at a blank screen. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Then Morrison spoke, his voice carrying a new edge I'd never heard before. "Chen, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a first contact situation that's about to become a war." The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity. The Zephyrian fleet, now numbering over 200 ships, began moving toward Earth. They weren't hurrying, traveling at what our analysts determined was about 60% of their maximum speed. They were confident, almost casual in their approach to conquering humanity. Earth's response was swift but appeared hopelessly inadequate. The United Earth Defense Force had exactly 47 combat-capable vessels, most of them designed for anti-piracy operations and asteroid mining disputes. Against a fleet of advanced alien warships, our chances looked grim. But something strange began happening in the days that followed. Captain Morrison received encrypted communications from Earth Command that made his expression grow darker with each message. He began spending hours locked in his quarters, reviewing classified files I wasn't authorized to see. When he emerged, there was something different about him, something that reminded me of the veterans I'd known who'd seen too much and learned to carry terrible knowledge. Chen, he said one morning as we monitored the approaching Zephyrian fleet, what do you know about humanity's real military history? The question caught me off guard. Sir. Our wars, our conflicts. How we've fought, how we've survived. What do you think makes humans dangerous? I thought carefully before answering. Our adaptability, I suppose. Our ability to learn from mistakes, to improvise. Morrison nodded slowly. That's part of it. But there's something else, something the Zephyrians don't understand because they've never encountered it before. He paused, looking out at the stars. Humans don't just fight to win, Chen. When we're truly threatened, when survival is on the line, we fight with a desperation that borders on insanity. We'll sacrifice everything, burn everything, destroy everything, including ourselves, to make sure our enemies can't claim victory. 3 days later, the Zephyrian fleet reached the outer edge of the solar system. They began their approach to Earth with the same casual confidence they'd shown throughout their journey. Zephyrian even broadcast a message to the planet, offering one final chance for surrender. The response from Earth was simple: come and take it. The Battle of Luna began at 0347 Earth Standard Time. I watched from the Meridian sensor station as the tiny Earth Defense Force fleet engaged the massive Zephyrian armada. It should have been over in minutes. The Zephyrian ships were larger, faster, more heavily armed. Their energy weapons carved through space like controlled lightning, and their shields absorbed our primitive kinetic weapons with ease. For the first 20 minutes, it looked like a massacre. 3 Earth destroyers were vaporized in the opening exchange. A cruiser broke apart under concentrated fire from 4 Zephyrian ships. The aliens maintained perfect formation, their tactics elegant and precise, like a dance of death among the stars. Then something changed. The Earth ships stopped fighting like a traditional fleet. They began using tactics that no civilized species would consider, maneuvers that bordered on suicidal. A damaged frigate, its hull breached and engines failing, accelerated directly into a Zephyrian battleship, detonating its remaining ammunition in a blast that took out both vessels. Another Earth ship, overwhelmed and outgunned, rammed itself into an enemy formation, its nuclear reactor going critical on impact. I watched in horror and fascination as Captain Sarah Rodriguez of the EDF Phoenix broadcasted on all frequencies, "This is Phoenix Actual. We're going down, but we're taking as many of these bastards with us as we can. For Earth, for humanity, and for everyone these things plan to enslave. Phoenix out." The Phoenix, its hull glowing white-hot from enemy fire, dove into the center of the Zephyrian formation. The explosion that followed destroyed 6 alien ships and damaged a dozen more. On the Zephyrian command frequency, which we'd managed to decrypt, I could hear Zephyrian's voice, no longer calm and superior. What are they doing? This is not tactical doctrine. This is madness. But the madness was just beginning. Earth Command had been preparing for this moment not for days, but for decades. Hidden installations throughout the solar system came online, launching clouds of kinetic projectiles, swarms of automated fighters, and weapons that defied conventional understanding. The asteroid belt itself became a weapon. Mining charges, originally designed for resource extraction, had been converted into massive shaped charges. As the Zephyrian fleet advanced, entire asteroids exploded, sending streams of molten metal and rock through their formations. Mars launched its own surprise, rail gun installations built into the planet's surface that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. The first salvo took out 12 Zephyrian ships before they even understood what was happening. But the real shock came when Earth's true defensive strategy was revealed. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons platforms that had been disguised as debris, defunct satellites, and abandoned stations. As the Zephyrian fleet moved deeper into the system, they found themselves surrounded by a web of firepower that activated in coordinated waves. More importantly, Earth had prepared contingencies that showcased humanity's most terrifying characteristic, our willingness to embrace mutually assured destruction. Every major population center on Earth, Mars, and the lunar colonies was rigged with thermonuclear charges. The message to the Zephyrians was clear: if you want our worlds, you'll inherit radioactive wastelands. The turning point came when Zephyrian demanded to speak directly with Earth's leadership. The response came from an unexpected source, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenopsychologist who had spent her career studying alien behavioral patterns from intercepted communications. "You made a fundamental error," Dr. Vasquez told the alien commander. "You assumed that because we're slower to develop technology, we're weak. You equated technological advancement with combat effectiveness. But you've never fought a species that evolved through constant warfare, that spent millennia perfecting the art of killing its own kind." Zephyrian's response was sharp with frustration. "Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are inferior. How do you expect to defeat us?" Dr. Vasquez's laugh was cold. "We don't expect to defeat you in a fair fight. But humans don't fight fair. We cheat, we lie, we sacrifice everything we hold dear to ensure our enemies can't claim victory. You want to conquer us? Fine. But we'll make sure that conquest costs you everything." As if to emphasize the point, Earth Command activated Operation Scorpion. Every human settlement, every orbital platform, every ship in the solar system was rigged to self-destruct. If the Zephyrians wanted to claim human space, they would inherit nothing but debris and radiation. But the real masterstroke was yet to come. Hidden within seemingly innocuous research data that Earth had been broadcasting into space for decades were carefully crafted viruses, not biological, but informational. These data packages were designed to infiltrate and corrupt alien computer systems, turning their own technology against them. The Zephyrian ships began experiencing cascading system failures. Their weapons targeted their own vessels. Their navigation systems sent them into collision courses. Their communication networks dissolved into chaos as corrupted data spread through their fleet like a digital plague. I watched from the Meridian as the most advanced military force in known space began tearing itself apart, victim to a trap that had been set decades before first contact ever occurred. Earth's scientists had predicted that any alien species capable of interstellar travel would be curious enough to analyze human data transmissions. That curiosity became their downfall. Zephyrian's final transmission was desperate, stripped of the earlier arrogance. "How is this possible? We are superior in every measurable way." Dr. Vasquez's response was delivered with deadly calm. "You're superior in technology. But you've never had to fight for survival against your own species for millions of years. You've never had to develop the paranoia, the creativity, the sheer bloody-minded determination that comes from being an apex predator on a world full of other apex predators. You evolved in peace. We evolved in war." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, fewer than 30 Zephyrian ships limped away from the solar system. The rest were either destroyed or captured, their crews taken prisoner for interrogation and study. But the real victory wasn't in the battle itself. Within days of the Zephyrian defeat, other alien species began reaching out to humanity. Not as conquerors, but as potential allies who had witnessed something unprecedented. A primitive species defeating one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations through sheer tactical brilliance and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Altarians were the first to make contact, followed by the Vegan Alliance and the Centauri Confederacy. Each of them had their own stories about Zephyrian aggression, their own reasons to fear the collective. And each of them wanted to understand how humanity had accomplished the impossible. Captain Morrison called me to his quarters 3 days after the battle ended. He looked older, worn down by the weight of what we'd witnessed and participated in. "Chen, I want you to understand something," he said, pouring himself a drink from his private stash. "What happened here wasn't a victory in any traditional sense. We didn't win because we were stronger or smarter or more advanced. We won because we were willing to do things that no sane species would consider." He paused, staring out at the stars where debris from the battle still glittered in the sunlight. "The Zephyrians called us weak, and in many ways, they were right. Our technology is primitive compared to theirs. Our ships are slower, our weapons less sophisticated. But they made one crucial mistake: they assumed that weakness meant we couldn't be dangerous. Over the following months, as humanity began its integration into galactic society, the truth became clear. The galaxy was filled with species that had evolved on peaceful worlds, that had developed advanced technology but had never needed to master the art of warfare. They conquered through technological superiority, never having faced an opponent willing to sacrifice everything for survival. Humans, by contrast, had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill everything else. We'd spent our entire evolutionary history learning to outthink, outfight, and outlast opponents who were stronger, faster, and better equipped than we were. When faced with extinction, we didn't just fight back, we fought dirty. The psychological impact on the galactic community was profound. Species that had dominated others for millennia suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering if their own, primitive, subjects might be harboring similar surprises. The balance of power in the galaxy shifted overnight. The Zephyrian Collective, once one of the most feared military forces in known space, became a cautionary tale. Their surviving ships returned to their home worlds with stories of human treachery and impossible tactics. But their warnings fell on deaf ears. Other Zephyrian commanders couldn't believe that such a primitive species could pose a real threat. 6 months later, when a second Zephyrian fleet arrived at Earth's borders, they found something that shattered their worldview completely. Humanity hadn't just repaired the damage from the first battle, we had reverse-engineered captured Zephyrian technology and improved upon it. Human ships now bristled with hybrid weapons that combined alien energy technology with human kinetic systems. Our defensive networks had been expanded and reinforced. Most importantly, we had allies, ships from a dozen different species, all united by their shared fear of Zephyrian aggression and their newfound respect for human tactical innovation. The second battle was even more devastating for the Zephyrians. This time, it wasn't just human desperation they faced, but human ingenuity backed by galactic resources and technology. The battle lasted 4 hours, and when it was over, the Zephyrian Collective formally requested a ceasefire. The peace negotiations were held on neutral ground, mediated by the Altarian Council. I was there as part of the human diplomatic team, serving as a communications specialist. Watching Zephyrian, the same being who had dismissed humanity as weak and primitive, formally surrender to Dr. Vasquez was a moment I'll never forget. "We underestimated your species," Zephyrian admitted, his earlier arrogance replaced by something resembling respect. "We assumed that technological advancement was the only measure of a civilization's worth. We were incorrect." Dr. Vasquez nodded graciously. "The mistake was understandable. Most species develop technology to make their lives easier, safer, more comfortable. Humans develop technology to make ourselves more efficient killers. The difference is subtle but crucial." As the negotiations concluded and the various species began to depart, Captain Morrison found me on the observation deck of the space station where the talks had been held. "So, what's next for humanity?" I asked him. Morrison smiled, but it wasn't entirely pleasant. "Now the real work begins. The galaxy knows we're not weak anymore, but they also know we're dangerous. Some will want to be our allies. Others will want to destroy us before we become too powerful. And some will just try to stay out of our way." He paused, watching the ships of a dozen different species preparing to jump to hyperspace. "The funny thing is, the Zephyrians were right about one thing. We are weak, in a lot of ways. Our technology still lags behind most galactic civilizations. Our ships are still slower, our weapons less elegant. But they made the mistake of thinking that weakness meant we couldn't be lethal. As I write this account, 5 years have passed since first contact. Humanity has taken its place as a major power in galactic politics, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through our demonstrated ability to survive impossible odds and turn our disadvantages into weapons. The galaxy learned a hard lesson from the human conflict: never assume that a species' apparent weakness means they can't destroy you. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. And sometimes, the greatest mistake you can make is underestimating the desperate creativity of a species that learned to kill before it learned to fly. The Zephyrians called us weak. They were right. But they forgot that weakness, when pushed to its breaking point, becomes something far more dangerous than strength. It becomes survival at any cost. That was their deadly mistake. And it changed the galaxy forever.